What is going on YouTube? Bryce builds it all here, your favorite AMPIA and Part 147 instructor. Didn't have a chance to make a video last week because we were very busy with my mother-in-law, some other things. I just got wrapped up in some other stuff. I tried to make a video on Sunday, but my iPad ran out of space and I decided not to let it hijack my emotions anymore. But in this video, I'm going to talk about being an aircraft mechanic, being an IA, if you should work for yourself, open your own business, or if you should work for somebody, sort of pros and cons of each of those. So if that interests you, as always, I ask that you stick around. Okay, so like I said, this is one of the simulators up here at the school that I teach at, and we have it fired up for some class right now. My students are currently on break, so I figured I had a moment and I'd film this video. So if you are an AMP and an IA, and you're thinking about going into business for yourself, I just want to give some of the pros and cons. Maybe you're already in business for yourself. Maybe you're just an AMP in school and you want to go into business for yourself eventually, but I want to give some of the pros and cons of each avenue so that you understand a little bit more about what you're going to face. And first, I'm actually going to talk about working for somebody or working for an FBO is what I should say. And when you work for an FBO, there's some serious benefits to it. One, all of the calibrated tooling that you have to keep, all of the manuals that you have to keep, the insurance costs that come with owning a business are not going to be your responsibility anymore. They are going to fall on the owner of the business. They're going to fall on the owner of the FBO, and they're going to be responsible for taking care of all of those things. And it's not something you're going to have to worry about. Now, I said this in my video last week or the week before, that when you are an IA and you are inspecting aircraft on the side, one of your biggest costs is tooling and manuals. Getting your calibrated tools, purchasing the tools in the first place. Jacks are not cheap. But purchasing your tools in the first place and calibrations are very, very expensive, as is access to a manual library, which you have to have as an IA. If you're working for an FBO, they're going to provide all of those things. So you're already saving quite a bit of money just from jump by working for someone instead of working for yourself. The other pro to this is that you're probably going to be getting paid for $40 an hour, or not $40 an hour, 40 hours a week, regardless of how many hours you work. If you work more than 40 hours, you'll get paid for more than 40 hours because that's how labor laws work. But what I'm saying is, if you only do 15 to 20 hours worth of labor in 1 week because it was a really slow week, which is not uncommon, it happened in the FBO that I used to work for every once in a while, you're still going to get paid for 40 hours. You're not dependent on the work you're doing on customer aircraft to keep food on your table. So you're kind of, you're doing okay because you got a FBO or somebody that's paying you an hourly wage, and you're not having to swallow, that cost when you have a slow week, which, I mean, that's the thing about business. There are seasons where it is really busy, and there are seasons where it is really slow. And if you're a savvy businessman, whether you own an FBO or if you are in business for yourself, you should be wise enough to save back 6 months to a year's of emergency fund, as you might call it, as Dave Ramsey would call it, where you can pay your employees for at least 6 months should you have a slow period in business. I know some people who have like a year emergency fund. They could stop doing work altogether and still pay all of their employees for almost a full year. It's kind of extreme, but it ensures that when business slows down or when the holidays come around, you're not struggling to put food on the table. So those are I think your 4 biggest benefits of working at an FBO, depending on the size and the scale of the operation. They may also have health insurance benefits, which they might not have those at all, so you could really wash one of those things. However, you're not going to make very much money. These are the cons. You're not going to make as much money working for an FBO. I know FBOs that hire people as high as $30 an hour, up to $40 an hour, and I also know places in general aviation that only pay A&P mechanics like $15, $16 an hour, and they pay IAs like $22 to $25 an hour, which is not a lot of money when you consider the amount of investment that goes into getting an A&P and then an IA. So this leads me right into the pros and cons of running your own business. Well, first is the cons. It's very expensive. The tools, the manuals, the calibration of those tools, keeping a records library, having a bookkeeping system, your taxes, which you can end up paying a lot of taxes at the end of the year if you're not very careful, are very, 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 very expensive. However, you can make a lot more money going into business for yourself than you can working for someone. A pretty standard hourly rate where I'm at is about $100 an hour. I said this in the last video. It's very regional. I know some shops like in Arizona, like Scottsdale, are almost $150 an hour because of how much things cost out there. A hangar out there is $5,000 or $6,000 a month. A hangar where I'm at, there is cheap, if you can get one, they're as cheap as $1,000 a month for a commercial hangar to do aviation maintenance in. Now, that's not a huge hangar. You can only fit 2 or 3 airplanes in there, but still, it's somewhere to do your maintenance. So those kinds of costs are going to vary depending on your region. Don't quote me on anything as like, oh, well, the guy on the internet said I could rent a hangar for $1,000 a month. Maybe you can if you're where I'm at, but that doesn't mean you will be able to if you're somewhere else. So the costs are through the roof when you're trying to go into business for yourself. And I think I broke it all down. To carry an insurance policy, I got a quote for about $15,000 to carry an $1 million insurance policy, general liability, and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to have workers' comp in the state of Texas if you have less than 4 employees, and things like that to consider. However, you can get away with charging $100 an hour and you drum up as much work and as much maintenance and as much business as possible. The more business you can get for yourself, the better off you're going to do. The more advertising you do, the more mechanics you get, or the more pilots you get bringing you their aircraft, the better off you're going to do each week, week in and week out. And charging $100 to $125 an hour labor rate, you're going to do pretty well for yourself if you can do 40 hours, especially if you can do more. If you get to a point where you maybe have you hire an A&P, either part-time or full-time, to step in and help with the maintenance, then it's even better. You can do like I like to do, which is if I am working with another A&P, I have them do all the labor-intensive work during the annual that I don't want to do. They take the interior out, they take the wheels apart, I inspect the bearings, they pack them, and they put the bearings back in. They do all of that hard labor-intensive work. When it comes time to fix discrepancies, they fix discrepancies, and so on and so forth. And you're working with someone, getting a lot more work done a lot faster, and hopefully making a decent amount of money, because that's what you should really hope to do. What you need to ask yourself, though, is what works best for you. Do you want to go into business for yourself? Do you want to file for an LLC? Do you want to go through all of those costs of having a manual library, having a home office, having tools that you're going to have to buy, and then go into business for yourself? Try to find a hangar, try to find insurance. It can all cost a lot of money, and there's going to be a lot of stress when business does slow down to put food on the table. Or do you want to work for someone? Well, that's ultimately up to you. Now, I will say how I would ever do it. Right now, I just run a very small side business. I've obviously talked about this in the last 2 videos. But how I would ever do it, if I ever got to a point that I was able to hire another employee, I would not hire them per se. I would work with them sort of in a partnership capacity. So I would tell them, look, you pay, or I will pay you your labor rate minus costs. So we will split the costs on manuals, we will split the cost on tooling, we will split the cost on insurance, we will split the cost on XYZ consumables, whatever it is, and then all the labor you do, you get to keep. All the labor I do, I get to keep. And there's got to be some sort of fair way to split that where it's sort of down the middle. If I do 150 hours in 1 month and they only do 10 hours that month, it's not that 150 is ridiculous, but you get the point. It's not fair to charge them half and they only did 10 hours worth of labor and I did a lot more. So it's got to be a way to work it out. But I don't know that I would hire somebody and just say, I'm going to pay you an hourly rate of $20 an hour to work for me as an employee. I think I would bring them in more as a partner, and we work together to deliver the aircraft. And I think that would leave everybody just a lot more happy at the end of the day. You could even split a hangar if you wanted to, and then instead of paying all the rent, you could split the rent with that person. But I would still kind of have it written somehow in the contract that I was the sole proprietor or the owner of everything, because I don't want somebody to take over my own hangar that I'm in. But I don't know. I'm just spitballing there. That could work. I haven't actually looked into this. I've always kept my side business very, very small because I already work 55 to 60 hours a week every week at the school. So I've only got a couple hours on the weekends to do side work, and then obviously on my time off in between semesters. But there you go, everyone. I kept it a little short. I hope you found this video entertaining. I hope you found it helpful. As always, make sure you follow me on Instagram, join my Discord, like, comment, subscribe. Go build something. That'd be easy.